Good morning. Hope everyone's well this morning. Our main text mostly is going to be Numbers, chapter 9, 15 through 23. It's going to be a little bit different today, even than what I normally do, because, like I said, I had short notice and I had to. Numbers chapter 9, verses 15 to 23. But I had to study a little bit different. I didn't what I already had on my mind. The Lord didn't show me anything, so I couldn't find anything to study up on that, and then I ended up coming across this, and it's I think it's a pretty good lesson if we let it go into our hearts. But we'll go ahead and read that, and then we'll get into it. Numbers chapter 9, starting in verse 15. And on the day that the tabernacle was reared up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, namely the tent of the testimony. And at even there was upon the tabernacle as it were the appearance of fire until the morning. So it was always. The cloud covered it by day, and the appearance of fire by night. And when the cloud was taken up from the tabernacle, then after that the children of Israel journeyed. And in the place where the cloud abode, there the children of Israel pitched their tents. At the commandment of the Lord, the children of Israel journeyed, and at the commandment of the Lord they pitched. As long as the cloud abode upon the tabernacle, they rested in their tents. And when the cloud tarried long upon the tabernacle many days, then the children of Israel kept the charge of the Lord and journeyed not. And so it was, when the cloud was a few days upon the tabernacle, according to the commandment of the Lord they abode in their tents, and according to the commandment of the Lord they journeyed. And so it was, when the cloud abode from even unto the morning, and that the cloud was taken up in the morning, then they journeyed. Whether it was by day or by night that the cloud was taken up, they journeyed. Or whether it were 2 days, or a month, or a year, that the cloud tarried upon the tabernacle, remaining thereon, the children of Israel abode in their tents, and journeyed not. But when it was taken up, they journeyed. At the commandment of the Lord they rested in the tents, and at the commandment of the Lord they journeyed. They kept the charge of the Lord at the commandment of the Lord by the hand of Moses. Say a word of prayer. Dear Lord and Father, thank you. Thank you for this day. Thank you for showing me some things to find here to study for a lesson this morning, and just ask you to be with us all, be with me, guide me, that I'll say the things you want me to say, and that open our hearts to receive your message, Lord, that nothing I got to say is any good, but we want to receive your message, Lord. Just guide us through this service and keep us in your will. In Jesus' name, amen. In 1519, Magellan set out from Spain to, circumvent the earth on a voyage. Didn't have any cell phone. Didn't have no Google Maps. No instant weather report or anything like that. They had the stars in the sky, and those guys knew what they were doing. But they planned it all out, had it all worked out, and which they knew, all the crew knew it was a dangerous mission. And they say Magellan even wrote a will before he left in case he died on the trip, which he ended up dying on the trip. But the trip was a success, but he didn't get to see it. It reminds me of Moses a little bit, that he went with them for 40 years through the wilderness, but he didn't get in the promised land. So, but But, just having the faith of what you know to take off on something like that is, that's a lot of faith in your knowledge, but when we put our faith in God, it's so much better. That, they, like I say, they knew the stars and they knew all that, but I don't know, I never did read anything about that they knew the Lord. But you can put your faith in that stuff, but it don't do what God can do. And years ago, Cindy and I'd never been on a plane, and Dad and Sherry decided that they wanted to take us all to Florida for Christmas. Take the whole family, and me and Cindy said, we'll just drive. We're not getting on that plane. But we ended up going on the plane, and we were pretty nervous about it. But I decided, got it in my heart that we were saved. We were back in church then, and living for the Lord, and I knew that if something happened, the Lord had us. So I didn't want it to, and I was still kind of scared about getting on that plane. But I had to put my faith in the Lord and get on it and go. And then we didn't think a whole lot about it when we got on there. It was pretty nice, actually, I thought. But the taking off was the scary part for Cindy. But we got off the plane in Florida, and Sherry come back to us and said, "Are you all okay?" I said, "Yeah, we're fine." She said, "There was some pretty rough turbulence." I said, "What?" I didn't even notice them. "What are you talking about?" She said, "I didn't want to say anything. I didn't want to get you worked up on there, but," she said, "those turbulence was pretty bad." I said, "Wow, if that was bad, I'm good. I can deal with that." But the Lord watched over us there, and I'm just, it kind of made me see where I had to put my faith. I didn't have faith in that plane. I didn't have faith in the pilot, which he was Captain Kirk, but I still didn't put no faith in him. But I remember they come over speaker as Captain Kirk, and I thought, man, where are we going? But anyway, you got to put your faith in the Lord. And so we go to talk about Numbers a little bit. And Numbers 9 tells about the journey from the wilderness to the promised land, and how the Israelites had their faith tested and their obedience, and they, just like us, they failed a lot. But and that's why we needed a Savior. That's why we needed Jesus, and that's why the Lord sent Him for us. But in chapter 1 of Numbers, where it gets its name, from what I understand, is it's where they done their census of the 20 years and up fighting men for Israel. We remember how many that was in the beginning of Numbers? Yeah, 603,550. And then after all the murmuring and complaining and the switching sides and the Lord striking them down and this and that and the battles, and 38 years later they counted again. How many was there? A little over 600,000, 601,000. So, the Lord punished them and chastised them and punished those that needed it, and they still had the same amount of fighting men. And they took many of them at a time, there several times. But then chapter 2, it talks about the tribes encamping around the tabernacle. 3 on the north, 3 on the south, 3 on the east, 3 on the west, and that when they head out to journey, the eastern tribes to lead the way. And chapters 3 through 8 go to instructions for the priest. And then we get chapter 9 and 1 through 14 is talking about how to keep Passover and the things you're supposed to do there. Then in 15 to 23, it's how the Lord led Israel. Back in verse 15. And on the day that the tabernacle was reared up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, namely the tent of the testimony. And at even there was upon the tabernacle as it were the appearance of fire until the morning. And that cloud on the tabernacle represents, I believe it represents the presence of the Lord being with them. And notice there it doesn't say, and on the day that the tabernacle was reared up, a cloud covered the tabernacle. It says the cloud. Yeah. The cloud of God's glorious presence is what I come up with there. And it was to show them God's with them. And back in Exodus chapter 40, verses 34 and 35. Exodus 40:34. Then a cloud covered the tent of the congregation, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. And Moses was not able to enter into the tent of the congregation, because the cloud abode thereon, and the glory of the Lord filled the tabernacle. As soon as, and then back up here to 33, Exodus 40:33. And he reared up the court round about the tabernacle and the altar, and set up the hanging of the court gate. So Moses finished the work. As soon as it was done, the Lord come in a cloud and filled it with the glory of the Lord. So full that they couldn't go in. So it's and it stayed that way through their journey, that the Lord stayed with them through their journey, and in that showed them in that form of the cloud by day and the fire by night. And Exodus 13:21. Again, I got this big study Bible that don't have any pages marked, so it takes me a little while, but it helps me learn where stuff's at. Exodus 13:21. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud, and lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire, to give them light to go by day and night. He took not away the pillar of cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night from before the people. So the Lord always wanted them to know that He was with them. And He kept those visible signs there for them. That, I forget where it was. Shoot. Moses wanted to look at the Lord, and he said no man could look on Him without dying. I don't remember the exact words, I don't remember the verse, but they needed to see the Lord, but they couldn't. So He gave them the cloud and the fire that they knew He was there, but they couldn't look upon the Lord. So. And in journeys and trials and tribulations, it seems like they ain't anything more important than to know that the Lord's with you. It helps a lot of things. Well, I think this is close. Let's look at Exodus 33 real quick. 13. And that's where, I knew I read that last night. That part about Moses wanting to see him is close here. It's right after this, but we'll read 13 through 17 there, in Exodus 33. Now therefore I pray thee, if I have found grace in thy sight, show me now thy way, that I may know thee, that I may find grace in thy sight, and consider that this nation is thy people. And he said, My presence shall go with thee, and I will give thee rest. And he said unto him, If thy presence go not with me, carry us not up hence. For wherein shall it be known here that I and thy people have found grace in thy sight? Is it not in that thou goest with us? So shall we be separated, I and thy people, from the people that are upon the face of the earth. So, I think Moses is talking to God there, and he said, well, God, if you ain't going, I ain't either. if you ain't going with us, I don't want to go. So, it's like I say, if you got a tough thing to go through, for a child of God, you got to know that the Lord's with you, and it'll help you a whole lot. And that shows is a significance, I believe, of the cloud and the fire, to show that God is present with them all the time. Although that cloud and fire was temporary. Once they got the promised land, that was gone. But good news for us. We got Jesus and Holy Spirit, and that'll never go away. So, anybody got anything they would share about a time you felt the strong presence of the Lord with you in something? I think about when they had the fire over here and I lost my sisters. Churches were great, the community was great, neighbors, everybody was doing this and doing that and checking on everybody. And I found my best time was when I got out of the house, away from everybody. I went out to the woodshed and prayed. Of course, I cried a little bit, and I prayed, and I could feel the Lord with me out there, and brought me comfort. And I've had a lot of people ask me about that. How you get through that? And that's you don't get over it. You get through it with the help of the Lord. And I know the Lord has helped me there, and because I can see my family that doesn't have the Lord. It's been 10 years, and they still struggle very hard with it. And I ain't going to say I don't sometimes, but I just about there. But I can talk about it today without crying about it. And I'm getting a little close there, but the Lord helps me. And every time I have to come up here and stand behind this podium, I can feel the Lord with me. I can't do this myself. This is not something I was made for. I mean, it's not in my nature to be here doing this kind of stuff, but the Lord helps me, and like I say, prayerfully, I can get the message across that He wants everybody to hear. And like Ephesians 1:13. I can't find that one real quick, so I wrote it down. One and 13. Now I am going to have to look that one up because I didn't write it down. I wrote down what I was going to say about it.
What chapter?
1 and verse 13. Okay. Ephesians 1, chapter 1, verse 13. In whom ye also trusted, after that ye heard the word of truth, the gospel of your salvation, in whom also, after that ye believed, ye were sealed with that Holy Spirit of promise. So, when we get saved, God's there. He's right here all the time. And sometimes that Spirit is in us. So, the Bible tells you once you get saved, He's there. Sometimes we kind of put a clamp on Him, try to squeeze Him down, or throw a little water on the fire of the fire of the Spirit, and kind of try to quench it out a little bit. Or we may not try to, but a lot of times we do it without even realizing it until it's done. But as long as we were truly saved, we can't put it out. We can't run it off. It's with us forever. That Spirit of the Lord. And so we can do a lot of things to hurt it, to damper it, to make it not very effective, but we can't get rid of it. We don't, which I don't know why anybody'd want to, but we just do stupid human things, and I'm one of the best at that. I can do stupid very well, but and like Ron says, I can try to ignore something the Lord tells me, and I'm about down for a day or two. Just like I say, them whippings hurt. I thought Dad was bad, but the Lord's a lot worse. Dad's after about 10 minutes quit hurting, but the Lord stay on you for a week if He has to, and He don't let up. But then for that, we'll go over to 2 Corinthians 13 and 5. What Paul tells us to do. 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 5. Examine yourselves whether ye be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves how that Jesus Christ is in you, except you be reprobates. We got to check ourselves to know that the Lord is there. And if you check yourself and you don't find that Spirit, you don't find that the Lord's with you, you better check yourself whether you got saved or not. So that's what then back in the original here, verse 16, so it was always. The cloud covered it by day, and the appearance of fire by night. The Lord was with the Israelites all the time. Like I say, I didn't get time to look up a bunch of translation words, but so it was always. I mean, that just, to me, it continued. Every time you looked, if it was daylight, there was a cloud there. If it was night, there was a fire. It just continual the whole journey. You could always see it. And we'll move on to 17, Numbers chapter 9 and 17. And when the cloud was taken up from the tabernacle, then after that the children of Israel journeyed, and in the place where the cloud abode, there the children of Israel pitched their tents. So, they stayed where the cloud was. They went where the cloud went. that was their commandment. And let me go ahead and read 18. At the commandment of the Lord, the children of Israel journeyed, and at the commandment of the Lord they pitched. As long as the cloud abode upon the tabernacle, they rested in their tents. So, I can just imagine them going through the wilderness there, and they're following that cloud. Just trekking along. We making pretty good time today. We head on over here. We get across that little hill before we make camp. All of a sudden the cloud stops. And, the Lord's got other plans. I guess we'll camp right here. But they did listen on a lot of that, on that part. They didn't listen to everything, but they did pay attention to the cloud, because they knew that was the presence of the Lord. If they got away from that, they'd be completely lost. Like if we don't accept Jesus, we're completely lost. We're just out here floating around. But and then it keeps pretty repetitive here to me, but when you put it all together, it kind of makes a little bit of sense. Read on down through 22. 19. And when the cloud tarried long upon the tabernacle many days, then the children of Israel kept the charge of the Lord and journeyed not. And so it was, when the cloud was a few days upon the tabernacle, according to the commandment of the Lord, they abode in their tents, and according to the commandment of the Lord they journeyed. And so it was, when the cloud abode from even unto morning, and that the cloud was taken up in the morning, then they journeyed. Whether it was by day or by night that the cloud was taken up, they journeyed. Or whether it were 2 days, or a month, or a year, that the cloud tarried upon the tabernacle, remaining thereon, the children of Israel abode in their tents, and journeyed not, but when it was taken up, they journeyed. So, sometimes they stay in the same place a year, according to what I'm reading there. And I know the way the Israelites were, there had to be a lot of murmuring and a lot of backseat drivers in that crowd. Why are we still here? It's kind of like Paul was telling them on the ship that we can find a better time to leave than the way the weather's going to be. And they're like, man, if we don't get going now, winter's going to come in on us, and we're not going to make it. We need to get going, but the Lord's staying there for a year. And I know when we get ready for a fishing trip, it's hard for me to hold Chris back. He wants to leave at 2 o'clock in the morning. He don't care where we're going. He wants to get out at, we'll have a place reserved to stay when we get there. Well, we can't get in till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He wants to get there at daylight, put the boat in the water, and fish until we can go check into the room. He says, we'll check into the room anytime. Well, I want to go fishing. And most of the time that works out okay. But usually I'm not quite ready by 2 o'clock, and we end up leaving about 3:30. But the Lord has better plans. As He sees the beginning and the end, and He knows what's ahead of us there. And it's hard. Like Chris, he's not a kid anymore, but he's still got a little bit of that kid mentality that I don't. He doesn't like to travel, but he likes to be there. But and he's found out that he can't take his boat on an airplane, so he's going to have to drive there. So he's kind of settling out a little bit. But it's we want to go when we want to go, when we think it's right, when we think it's good. But God knows if there's a tree getting ready to fall across the road. or something like that. He knows, if there's a drunk gonna be coming down Route 2 when I'm heading out, and he may hold me up so I don't get hit by that guy, or just whatever it is. God knows, and he has the ultimate best plan. But it's like Chris called me the other night and wanted to go fishing yesterday. I said, well, I guess we could. He said, if it's not raining. I said, okay, all right, I don't want to go fishing in the cold rain. So he messaged me early Friday night, or not early, a little bit later Friday night. Said, you can't really go tomorrow, can you? And I said, I guess I can if you want to. I said, you got somebody else wanting to go? No. I said, well, all right. I said, I'll get up. And then he come back and he said, I don't think I want to go. I said, are you feeling all right? He said, yeah, I'm fine. It's just pretty good chance of rain and pretty cold. And he said, we got in a pretty good chance of rain at Del Hollow, and we got soaked 2 days in a row, but it was warm. And he said, if I get wet and it's cold, it ain't gonna feel good. I said, all right. But I kind of told Cindy, I kind of figured that's what he was getting at, but I let him dig a little hole and let him make it his decision not to go and not blame it on me. But like I say, he's learning a little and waiting on things, but anyway, that's off target there pretty bad. But in those verses there, the Israelites from 17 and verse 17 through 23, the end of the chapter there, they stay with the cloud of God's presence. When the cloud went, they went, and at the commandment of the Lord they camped, at the commandment of the Lord they journeyed. Now, I did look up the translation of at the commandment of the Lord. The commandment of the Lord is most I could get from my study Bible was pay Yehovah. Pay meaning the mouth of Jehovah. At the mouth of Jehovah they camped, and at the mouth of Jehovah they journeyed. So when Jehovah told them to stay, they stayed. When he told them to go, they go. So what do y'all think the Lord was trying to teach the Israelites there?
He wants you to go and do, and sometimes he wants you to stay and do.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that's that was two of the things he said might be answers, might come up for that. And another one was to be different. That when you're God's people, you take your direction from God instead of the world, like the worldly people. That was another option he had there. And like I said, I didn't think there'd be any wrong answers. But then,
I think trusting in him, because eventually they ain't gonna have the cloud. And, teaching them that,
yeah,
I think, eventually, they ain't gonna be there. You're gonna have to trust him without having
Right.
that. But showing them how to trust him that way,
Yeah. and eventually they trust him without seeing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Have faith.
Yeah, that's not really faith when you're looking at the cloud.
Right, right.
But they're gonna have to hear God speak in other ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They ain't gonna have that all the time.
Right.
Eventually, but, he's treating them, treating them like he was treat us when we first get saved, like little baby steps,
Yeah.
And
Gotta have the milk.
What reminds me of,
Yeah.
and sometimes still, you think you got to remind around something, and you don't really, and you learn something new or something, you're back down to, like, I feel like baby steps again, you know,
Yeah.
or whatever, but that's what it kind of
Yeah.
hit me.
Well, kind of like Pam and Dad and Gail and them with their knee surgeries. You know, Dad's 82 years old. He's been walking a long time. You get that knee replaced, you got to learn to walk on that thing again. You got to back up a little bit. Sometimes even now, I like a good steak, but sometimes I gotta back up and have some mashed potatoes a little bit. I gotta, it's, you gotta back up once in a while and get the fundamentals back in you to get you going again. But like I say, he wants us to be different than everybody else because we follow him. Not everybody else. He wants his people to be different than the worldly people. And he wants us to take a step of faith with him. Psalm 119, 105 says, "Thy word is a lamp unto my feet, a light unto my path." The lamp is meaning just a small light. It's just enough light for each step. And God, it's like God says, you take this step, then I'll show you where the next one goes. But you got to put your faith in him and your trust in him. And then I thought of, he's telling you to wait on him. Says in that, you wait till the Lord tells you what to do. Don't go off half-cocked and just do what you think is right. And I've done that. It doesn't end well. But Psalm 27:14, "Wait on the Lord, be of good courage, and he shall strengthen thine heart. Wait, I say, on the Lord." And Psalm 37:7, "Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him." Then Isaiah 40:31, "But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." And then in the New Testament, you can go to 1 Corinthians 4:5 and James 5:4. It's all wait on the Lord.
I imagine they probably learned a lot about patience.
Yeah. And, when we, things come along and we don't want to wait, you can write these down and look them up. I'm kind of closing in on time a little bit, but you don't want to wait, but know that God will take care of his children. Check out Psalm 37:5, Psalm 138:8, and Hebrew 10:36. They're all about learning to wait on the Lord, and then he'll do what he promises. I can't remember them word for word, and I didn't have enough paper to write them all out. But and I don't have time to search through and find them again. But you wait. You do what the Lord tells you to do when the Lord tells you to do it, and things go a lot smoother. You feel a lot better about it. You're a better witness. You're a better person. You're a better husband, a better wife. It's just better all around if you do what the Lord tells you to do when he tells you to do it. Kind of like I think of our building project. When we first started coming here, everybody was talking about, we're going to build on, we're going to build on, we're going to build on. But we didn't yet. We waited, we done it right, we waited for the Lord to lead of when to start, when to do it, and now we're a month out from being done. If we'd have just jumped in, like, when we started coming here, Ron said, we got another carpenter in the church. Let's get started on that building. The Lord wasn't ready for us to start. you know, but, you know, we managed the finances well and got it all worked out, and the Lord guided in that. I don't think we've made a step over there that we haven't asked the Lord's guidance for. And you can tell that everything's went smooth, basically smooth. We haven't had any real problems, but like I do that every day. There were many problems could have come up, and they didn't over here. So I'm thankful to the Lord for that. And like I say, it's His building, His doing, and He's just using us to help. And we get to use it for as long as we're here. And I thank Him for all that. But you know, I think of when we get ahead of God's plan, like, you know, Moses was telling them what, you know, the hand of Moses, I did say that. They kept charge of the Lord at the command of the Lord by the hand of Moses. So Moses was kind of their mediator and kind of, I guess, figured out what God was telling them and let people know they followed. He was their guide to follow the Lord. But like we've been talking about Saul, you know, he got ahead of the Lord and it messed everything up. You know, Samuel's coming back in 7 days. Well, it's 6.5 days. I don't know. You know, he didn't, decided to go ahead and make the sacrifice, you know. Well, then here strolls up Samuel. What are you doing? You know. Well, I didn't think you was going to make it. Okay, well, I said 7 days. 7 days ain't over yet. But so he said, well, I had to do something. No, you didn't. You trust in the Lord that He'll get it worked out. And I know you hear it a lot. I've heard it a lot when I was coming up working with Dad, and I hear it a lot to the new guys now. Don't just stand there, do something. Can't stand somebody just standing around. Do something, do something. That's beat into our brains. You got to be doing something, do something. But if the Lord ain't telling you what to do, you're better off to stand around and do nothing. Do nothing and wait for the Lord to tell you what to do. That's all I've got. Anybody got anything to add or questions or comments?